Hi, welcome to episode 100 of the Knitting Expat Podcast. My name is Mina and I'll be your host today. Today is Sunday the 23rd of April and welcome to all new and returning viewers. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to join me today. I'm coming to you from my home in New York where I live with my husband, our 2 cats and our baby girl. If you have been watching for a while, you'll know all the backstory, and if you are new, my husband and I were originally from the UK and we were living in the Middle East before we moved to the US towards the end of last year, and we had our baby girl 2 months ago now. So yeah, we're settling into life here now, and I'm trying to get back into podcasting regularly. So I usually film midweek while my husband's at work, but with the baby and everything, it's a little bit, her napping is still a little bit unpredictable, so I can't be sure that she'll sleep long enough for me to be able to film a podcast without having to keep interrupting and stuff. So I'm filming on the weekend while my husband's looking after the baby. So she should be going down for a nap soon, so hopefully he's dealing with that, and then he'll have some downtime whilst I finish recording. Okay, I wasn't going to talk about that now, but anyway. So I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who's introduced themselves in the introductions thread and in general for chattering away in the group. It's been really fun to keep up with all of that. I am afraid I don't always have enough time in my day to comment and reply back to everybody who writes on the forums and stuff, but I really do appreciate it and I do read every single one. I do reply back to anyone who asks specific questions, especially in the chatter threads for any knit-alongs that I'm hosting. If there are specific questions that people have, I do try and answer those as soon as I can. Usually, to be honest though, by the time I get to it, somebody else within the group has already replied to those questions, which I really, really appreciate. So thank you so much to those of you who do that. We also have a coupons code thread in the group, so if you are interested in any getting some coupons and stuff, by all means check out that thread in the group. There's loads of codes and stuff in there for you guys. Sorry, I'm looking over at the door. I've got all the doors closed. This is our spare room / Layla's room, eventually when she moves into here. But I have all the doors closed and Hugo has figured out how to open the doors. They open outwards, so he's on the outside of the room, and he's figured if he bounces the door enough, it kind of opens up a bit and he can knock it open with his paws. He's pretty determined. The doors don't latch, they just sort of fold shut. So yeah, he doesn't have to worry about latches or anything. Anyway, so let's move on. I don't have a ton of time today to record, but I was going to go over finished objects, works in progress, some planning ideas that I have, acquisitions, knit-along giveaway news, and questions and answers. I've realised there's actually quite a few questions that need answering, so I'm going to try and answer a few of those this week. And I'm going to finish off with a bit of a weeks in review. A couple of weeks have been since I last recorded, and I actually think this two weekly podcast thing is probably going to work out best for me at the moment. I don't have a ton of knitting time, as will be evident from the amount of knitting I've done compared to what I normally get done. And also I just think that it's less pressure for me than recording every week at the moment with a baby. Every other week works out quite nicely. I can be sure that, you know, it's not going to take up too much of our weekends for me to do it once every couple of weeks. And yeah, so I think I'm going to stick with this schedule for now. I think once Layla's a bit bigger and things have settled a bit more, then I might go back to recording every week. But until I have more to show you each week, I don't think there's much point in me doing it weekly, because there wouldn't be all that much to share if I did it every week. So I hope that makes sense. Alright, so finished objects this week. I only have one finished object to show you guys, and that is this hat. There we go. It's just a really fun cabled hat, folded brim, which is my go-to, especially for like a worsted weight hat. I haven't blocked it. I really don't tend to block hats very often. I do block them for photos for my designs, and this is one of my designs, so I will be blocking it to take photos because it just looks better in pictures. But generally, unless it's like a lace design, I really don't think hats need to be blocked, because they sort of naturally block when you wear them on your head. And you know, unless you want your hat to have a specific kind of slouch or something. But for something like a worsted weight cabled hat, I actually think that not blocking it means it sits more snugly on your head. This is the large size. There will be two sizes in the pattern, a large and a slightly smaller size. And the smaller size would be good for children, teenagers, so people with slightly smaller heads. And this is knit out of Little Bean Loves Yarn. The lovely Kayleen sent me this yarn to play with, and I thought it would be perfect for this pattern. And the colourway is Slytherin's Common Room, and I'm not sure how well you can see it, but there's two different types of cables. And yeah, it's a really simple pattern, really fun cables. Let me just find a good place to show you. And they're not quite your standard cables. There's an asymmetrical cable, and then there's another one which is slightly offset. I mean, it's not exactly an even cable that you might be used to, but they're not difficult. They're pretty standard, small cables, as in small number of stitches. And yeah, it's a really fun pattern, really quick knit. And yeah, and I've realised as well, I knit this on 4mm needles, and I realised I actually really like worsted weight hats knit on a slightly tighter gauge. So typically for worsted weight yarn and hats especially, you tend to use 4.5 to 5mm needles. At least that's my experience with patterns that I've read and stuff like that. But I really like knitting my worsted weight hats on 4mm needles. It gives a really nice, dense, squishy fabric, makes it really warm on the head as well, which is great for like winter and stuff. If you didn't want it to be as warm and you wanted it a little bit looser, you could obviously go up a needle size. But it does create quite a dense fabric to the point that it will stand up on its own. That's how sort of dense the fabric is, but it doesn't feel hard or uncomfortable to wear. Like, it's still pretty flexible and stretchy. It just means it's that much warmer because of the density. So yeah, that's that hat. I'll put it on for now. So my hair's a bit of a mess. And this is the slightly slouchier version. I mean, it's not really slouchy, but it's a slightly deeper version. There is a version where if you didn't want it to be as deep as this, it's like half a repeat shorter, which is probably more suitable for men, I guess, for a slightly more fitted, tight on the head beanie type thing. I mean, I have quite a lot of hair, so if I have my hair up or anything, I need to have that extra sort of space. And you can obviously make it a bit longer as well if you wanted it to be slouchier. So that's it for my finished objects. That's the only thing I have to share with you. As for works in progress, I have a few things to show. I have 2 pairs of socks, so we'll start with one, and this is in a bag from Crit Yum Handmade out of Canada. She sent this to me end of last year, whilst we were shortly after I moved to the US. And in here I have a pair of vanilla socks, and this is where I'm at. That's the yarn, so it's just sort of like a spiral striping variety of purples. I just popped in the heels last night, and I just did my German short row heel in garter stitch. And if you have any of my patterns that have the German short row heel instructions in it, to do it in garter stitch, you literally just knit every row, where the pattern is in stockinette, so you knit one row, you purl the next row according to the instructions. To do it in garter, you just knit the purl rows. It is just that simple. I'm not planning on writing up separate instructions for it, because it's not that necessary. It is quite simple to figure out. If you want it in garter, just knit the purl rows. And I also did a slightly shorter version of the modified heel flap adjustment. I did 3 repeats instead of 4, which is what's in the pattern. So if you have the pattern, you'll know what I'm talking about. These will probably be a gift pair of socks. Not sure for who yet, but I'm just starting to stockpile and build up my gift sock collection, or basket or whatever, for when we eventually go back to the UK. I have some socks to give to friends and family and stuff. And so this is being knit out of some ice yarns. This was some that was sent to me by a lovely viewer. and this is in the sock, in the mini sock. So there's two 50-gram balls. There's no colorway name or number on here. It just says mini sock. It's 75% superwash wool, 25% polyamide, 200 meters and 50 grams. Yeah, so it's just like a mixed purples. And I thought it might be a self-striping, but it's kind of like a spiral striping, which is absolutely fine. I've just twisted stuff up here. And I'm knitting these on Chiagu red lace 2.25 US ones. I really like these needles. They're really nice, and I like the cable. I know some people have issues with this cable, but I'm finding it's quite flexible and it doesn't have any memory, which means it's great. It doesn't kink up on itself, which I really like. That's the only downside to the high sharps. I find sometimes they do kink up and you have to kind of soak them in hot water to undo the kinks. But I really like the Chiagus, so that's that. The first work in progress, so this should be finished soon, fingers crossed. I probably had the rate that I knit at the moment, the amount of time I have. The thing is, I still knit as fast as I used to, I just don't have as much time to knit, so progress is a little bit slow, but it should be done in a couple of days, hopefully. And the second pair of socks that I'm working on is out of Wool Fiend yarn. If I can find the tag, it should be in here. Wool Fiend hand-dyed yarns, and this is on her 80-20 sock base. It's 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 400 yards and 100 grams in the Lothlorien colourway. And it's these really nice sort of woodsy greens. Come on. So, oh, there we go. These really nice sort of woodsy green colours. And this is going to be a pair of socks for my dad. I decided it's been a while since I've knit my dad a pair of socks, and he's a very knit-worthy recipient of socks that I've knit for him in the past, so I thought I would knit him another pair. And so I've just done a simple sort of ribbed pattern. There's no pattern for this, I just sort of made it up as I went along. I realised I wanted to do a sort of ribbed pattern for my dad because he has sort of quite wide feet but quite skinny legs. So I thought, some of the socks I've knit for him in the past, I mean, they all fit him fine, but they get a bit baggy around the ankle and on the leg compared to the foot. So I've decided to add a bit of a rib texture to these socks. So I'll explain briefly how I've done it, so if anyone wants to repeat it, there we go. So I just did a 2x2 rib at the top, and then the rib columns in the sock are in garter stitch. So it's knit one row plain all the way around, and then do a ribbed row. So I centralized the ribbing on the cuff. So even though it's a 2x2 ribbing, I started with a knit one, then purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2 to the end of the row, and ended on the knit one. So you begin and end on the knit one, and then it's a 2x2 rib in between. That way it kind of centralizes the ribbing on the sock. And then for the actual ribbing in the sock, I did knit 1, purl 2, then I did knit 10, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 10, purl 2, knit 1. So that's for a 64 stitch sock, and you can adjust it accordingly for a smaller or larger sock by just increasing or decreasing the number of knit stitches in the columns in the middle. And I've actually done it on both sides. I normally don't do patterning on both sides, but I decided to with this one because it's mostly vanilla. And yeah, the pattern just kind of goes all the way around. There we go. And I really like how it's turned out. And I'm knitting these concurrently. As you can see, I have two on high. These are high sharps 2.25 US ones, and these are the shorter cables. They're the 80 centimeter 32 inch cables. I normally knit my socks two at a time on 40 inch or 100 centimeter cables, but I picked these up at Vogue Knitting Live this year to try out concurrent knitting, and I find I quite like it. I'm liking it more now, especially with a baby. I'm finding it's handier to be able to knit a few rows quickly on one sock and then doing them two at a time. I mean, I still do two at a time, as you can see with the other pair of socks, but sometimes it's just easier to have on two separate needles, especially if you're doing a pattern sock. I feel like it's just easier to manage. when you're also dealing with a baby. But yeah, I still enjoy my 2 at a time. I think either way, no matter how I knit my socks, I'll always knit them 2 at a time in some way, whether they're concurrent or on the same needle. So yeah, so that's where I'm at with those. I think that pretty much covers everything I had to say about those socks. If you have any more questions about it, let me know and I'll try and address it either in the comments in the threads or on the next episode. And hopefully those will be finished soon as well. They're ready for their heels now. And my last work in progress isn't actually knitting, surprise, surprise. It's crochet. Now, I started a Scrappy granny striped blanket, which is all the rage these days, it seems. Like everyone's doing one. I'm a bit late to the game because this was a thing a few months ago, towards the end of last year. But I decided to cast one on. I have so much sock yarn, so many mini skeins in sock yarn, that I decided it was about time I did something with it. And I think what I'm going to do with my pinwheel scrap blanket, I'm going to keep working on that, but I'm going to use only yarns, going forward, I'm going to use only yarns that I've knit with myself in that blanket. I have a few blocks that are from mini skeins that other people have given me, but going forward I'm going to just use yarns that I've knit with, because the majority of that blanket is from my own scraps, and this blanket is going to be all the mini skeins that people have sent me, because I have a big thing of them, big bag of them. So I think that's kind of how I'm going to do the 2 blankets. I need to crack out that pinwheel scrap blanket and start working on that again as well. But for now, this has my interest. It's really nice and easy. I've just got my hook stuck in my hair. It's really nice and easy to work on. It's sort of a great mindless mindless project to work on in the evenings when it gets quite late and I'm feeling quite tired and I don't really want to have to think about anything. And yeah, so this is where I'm at. I should crochet. I'm using a clover, one of those clover armor, like the ergonomic type ones with the squishy handle. This is an E-hook, 3.5mm. And yeah, I really like it. I like these hooks. They're smooth, they work well. And I don't tend to drop the stitches as easily with that. And this is where I'm at. Looking on the camera, through the screen on the camera, it looks very rainbowy, which is perfect. And I mean it's rainbowy in person as well. But this is where we're at. And it's not too wide. It's basically as wide as my wingspan for the most part. I mean, when I stretch it out, it's my wingspan. But it's just a little bit short of my wingspan. I'm like 5'10"-ish, so say this is almost 5'10", so it's 5'7" or something across. It's not quite the width of a queen size bed, which is fine because I don't really envisage ever using this on the bed. My other Cozy Memories blanket, mitered square scrap blanket that I did last year, that I finished last year, that lives on the sofa, and we use that when we're on the sofa. Perry uses it to nap with or sleep or pull over his legs if he's a bit cold in the evenings, and so do I. And that's what I envisaged this being as well, just a lovely sort of cozy blanket for the sofa. So yeah, it's just really fun. I'm not particularly fussed about colours having to go all the way across a row or anything like that. I'm just going until I run out, and then I'm magic knotting the next colourway or next yarn, and I just keep going. So it just makes for a really fun, really scrappy sort of look. And yeah, the only thing I do in terms of colour management is I try not to have the same colours come up next to each other, and I try not to have too many sort of pale colours together and too many dark colours together. I try and mix up the colours and the values in terms of light and dark, so that it doesn't look like one area is like really dark, another area is really pale. I try and mix it up where I can as best as possible. So yeah, so that's been really fun. I cast this on not all that long ago. Let me just check my notes. When did I start this? I started this on the 11th of April, so almost 2 weeks ago. So pretty much shortly after the last podcast, a couple of days after I started this. And so yeah, got some decent progress on that. And put that back in the bag, keeping it in my rainbow bag because it is a rainbowy type project. Although it's going to quickly outgrow this bag, I may have to upgrade it to something else soon. But yeah, so that's it for what I'm currently working on. I have a few things coming up that I want to work on. I'm going to take this off because it's a bit warm. I have a few things coming up that I want to start and cast on and start working on. I wound up a bunch of yarn for another couple of pairs of socks and a shawl, which is a design project which I'll be working on soon. But I have a couple of other things that I'll be casting on as well. If you haven't been on Instagram, I guess, and you haven't been following, but Hohi Locatelli, who's a wonderful designer, she is doing a mystery knit along for the first time in 4 years. I didn't even know that Hohi did mystery knit alongs, so I was quite excited to join in on that one. I really like a lot of her designs. I haven't had an opportunity to knit many of her designs, just things didn't work out. Either I didn't have the right yarn for it, or something had come up. But I have quite a few of her designs in mind that I'd like to knit, and I was like, why not join in on the mystery knit along? I've only done one mystery knit along before, so I thought I'd jump in and try something else, try another one. So this one calls for 5 colours, and when you purchase the pattern, the first clue's not released until the 12th of May, but you can purchase the pattern now and you get like an information sheet with information on what you need, needles and yarn choices and stuff like that. So she gives quite comprehensive information about how to pick your colours. So these are the colours I've picked. I can't remember what order they end up in, which one's colour 1, 2 or 3, 4 or 5. There's 5 colours. But and there's loads of dyers out there who are putting together kits, and there's some really lovely kits out there, but I have so much yarn, I knew I could put something together using my stash, and this is what I came up with. So you definitely have a dark and a light colour in the shawl, and I thought these two skeins of John Alvin Textiles Knit by Numbers. It's 100% pure Falkland merino wool. And 100 grams is 400 meters. It is a non-superwash. I'm not too worried because it's a shawl and I don't really plan to wash any of my shawls in the washing machine, so I don't mind mixing. And that's the other thing I should say, I don't mind mixing textures and different yarn types and different plies and stuff like that in one garment. I know some people are really particular and want to use all single ply in a project, or all like 2-ply fingering or whatever, or the same yarn content or throughout or stuff like that. That doesn't bother me. I actually think it adds a bit more interest if you mix it up. Personal choices. This is just how I choose to do it. So this is Knit by Numbers 06. It's really sort of like pale grey colour. And then there's this dark sort of charcoal grey, Knit by Numbers number 2. So we've got 2 and 6. So like I said, there's a light tone and a dark tone yarn. There's one yarn which she says, one colour which she says is good if you want to use a sort of speckled or a variegated type of colourway. So I picked out this Madelinetosh skein. This is in the Madelinetosh Twist Light, which is their merino nylon, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. I had originally earmarked this for a pair of socks, I just never got round to it, and I thought it'd be great in this pattern. And this is in the Found Pottery colourway. So it's like a cream pale base with a whole bunch of speckles of all different colours in it, which I thought would be really fun. And then there's 2 other sort of complementary solid colours, tonal colours, and I picked out these 2 skeins of Madelinetosh. And so these are single plies. So this is Tosh Merino Light, the one that everyone knows about. And so this purple skein is in the 79th Street Sunset. And this is an exclusive colourway for Knitty City, which is a yarn store here in New York. And I thought that went well with Found Pottery. It sort of picks up on the purples in the speckles. It's hard to tell on camera, but there are definitely similar purples in the Found Pottery skein. And this green is really special as well. So I picked this up, was it on my first trip to Knitty City? After they got these colourways in, they got like a set of exclusive colourways in. So that was really special for that reason. And this was really special. Tosh Merino Light in the jade colourway. This was actually this was the very first skein of Madelinetosh I ever purchased in London on a trip to Loop with my mum. So I've been waiting for the right project for this, and this again also picks up on the greens in the Found Pottery colourway. So I really like these 2 together for that. And the other thing I wanted to do, and if you know me and you've been watching the podcast for a while, you'll recognise that this is very much within my comfort zone when it comes to colours, greens, purples and greys. Very much my happy place when it comes to young colours and just colours in general. And one thing I wanted to make sure was with this shawl, I wanted it to be something I would wear all the time. And so these are the colours that match my wardrobe the best and I wear the most. The shawls that I wear the most have greens and purples in them. So yeah, so that's why I went with these. I had other colour combinations that I pulled out and other options in mind, but like I said, I really wanted this to be something that I want to wear all the time. It's a really big sort of stole wrap type project, and yeah, I'm looking forward to getting these wound up and getting ready to cast on. So I'll probably get these wound up sometime this week, hopefully. And the next thing I wanted to sort of talk about, like I said, a couple of design projects and stuff in mind. I have another baby garment in mind that I want to work on at some point. I have the yarn picked out for that as well, which is really fun, and I'm going to be getting to that soon, hopefully. But really quickly, I want to mention, so I really want to knit one of Hohi's sweaters, and I picked out, I really like the Sammal, I don't know how you pronounce it, it's Sammal, and I'll show you a picture in a second. What was I going to say? I really like the way this one looked, and Hohi really kindly actually gifted me a copy of the pattern. And I really liked it because it's top down, all in one, even the button bands and everything is knit all at once, which I think at the moment with a baby is going to be the best way for me to knit a garment. I had originally been a bit reluctant to cast on a garment for myself because I haven't actually actively been trying, but I do need to start trying to get back into shape a little bit. I was really out of shape before I even got pregnant, so now it's like really bad. So I really need to just, other than a lot of walking, I haven't been doing much else. So I really need to start losing the baby weight essentially, or trying to get back into some sort of shape. I'm not worried about it. I'm not particularly stressing myself about it. I'm not sort of going out of my way to do much about it yet, but I know I need to start doing something. And but anyway, and the way this pattern is written, it's supposed to have a bit of ease in it, so I'm picking what is my usual sort of chest size, and actually my bust size hasn't changed that much since getting pregnant, so I think I'll be okay, is what I'm getting at with this particular cardigan. And I like it because it's got an all over texture, it's going to be interesting to work on, and it's got some cables as well, which I really like, and I've been wanting to knit a cabled sweater for myself, but this isn't an all over cable, it's just a couple of little cable details which I really like. So I'm going to try and show you the pattern on my computer so you can sort of see it there, and it's a really lovely sort of green colour that Hohi has picked as well for her sample, which I really like. And it's, so yeah, so the rest of the sweater is all sort of, it's got this lovely sort of texture pattern to it. And yeah, so I'm really looking forward to getting that started. Now my only issue is what colour to pick. So my initial thought was to use these skeins that I have of, this is Verdant Griffin on their Little Traveller base, which is a light fingering weight yarn. The pattern just calls for fingering weight yarn, but I think this should be fine. And it's 560 yards in 4 ounces. So it's a slightly bigger skein yardage wise. And it's this beautiful, it's in the Moss Man colourway, it's beautiful sort of mossy green colour. I'm not sure how well the colour's going to pick up on camera here. Yeah, it's this beautiful tonal green colour, which is very similar to the jade from Macintosh. But it's beautifully tonal, and it's a really nice sort of, I think it's a 2-ply fingering weight. I think it's 2-ply. So I need to swatch and see if this yarn would work for this sweater. My other option, which I also quite like the idea of, is a gradient set. Because it's an all-in-one garment with the button bands included, you're not having to pick up and knit those later. This would work quite well for a gradient set. And I have this gradient set from Woo Sheeps, which I picked up at Fibre East last year. And it's a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon in the Serendipity colourway, which is a gradient of navy to blue. Again, I'm not sure how well you can. Gradient from navy to blue, shades of blues. And then I also picked up a single skein, because this is 1,060 meters in the set, so 5 50-gram skeins. And then I picked up 100-gram skein in the same base, the Angus base, which is 424 meters and 100 grams, in the Put Your Camel to Bed, which I quite like that name, colourway, as to sort of go with this to make up the yardage to be able to make a full-size sweater for myself. And this kind of matches the middle tones in it's the same sort of colour palette, colour family as the gradient set. So what I was thinking was to use the gradient set for the body, and I'm not entirely sure which end to start from. Do I start from the light and go to dark at the bottom, or start at dark at the top and go to light at the bottom? I'm thinking from light to dark might be best, and then I was thinking of using this for the sleeves, but then I was wondering if that was going to look weird, because I'll be starting the sleeves when I sort of finish one of the light colours, because I imagine I'll probably be part way through maybe the second colour before I split for the sleeves. And then actually that wouldn't work too badly, actually, because that actually comes off quite nicely against that. So as long as I get to the second colour before I split to the sleeves, that should transition quite nicely, and then this will carry on into the body. So yeah, this could work. This could work for the sweater as well. So my question to you guys is, which set of yarn should I use for this sweater? Do you think I should do the gradient set or the green? Both I think would work quite nicely. I'm just looking at them, because this is a 2-ply fingering, I feel like this might show up the cables nicer. Cables tend to pop more with a more rounded yarn, and this is definitely a well-rounded plied yarn. So I'm kind of leaning towards that way. There's going to be much more in terms of yarn management and sort of thinking involved with when I change colours and stuff with the gradient set versus the other one. So swings and roundabouts, as they say. So I don't know. I'm still sort of debating which way I'm going to go with that one. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which one do you think would look better for this design? So that's it in terms of what I'm planning and what I'm thinking of. I really want to get a sweater on the needles. Normally in the past when I've knit sweaters, they've usually taken me less than a month to knit. I am bracing myself, because I don't normally like to have projects on the needles for a long time, but I'm bracing myself and understanding for myself that this is going to be a long-term project, more longer term than I am used to. But I'm trying to be okay with that, and I'm sure it'll be fine. This will be very much an evening knit for me, once Layla's gone to bed for the night, so I can have a solid couple of hours to work on it. So yeah, I think I definitely want to cast this on soon, so I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think about it. Moving on to acquisitions, I have a couple of things that came in the mail for me this week that I want to share with you guys. And yeah, so first up, the lovely Jamie from Beautiful Mess Yarn Works contacted me and asked if she could send me some yarn of hers to try out, and I said of course I'd love to. And she sent me this fully majorly neon skein of yarn, and this is on her 80/20 superwash merino nylon base. It's 400 yards and 100 grams, and this one is, the colourway is called Mango Tango. That is bright. That is super, super bright. It practically glows, it's so bright. So I'm thinking potentially a pair of socks for my mum again, and I sort of highlight a pair for her to wear in her trainers when she's walking around at night or coming home from work in the evenings once it gets dark. So you know, people see her coming. So thank you so much for that, Jamie. That's really sweet of you to have sent that. And the other thing that arrived in the mail is a set of high sharp needles, and this is a special set. This is I haven't seen this around too much before, but this is their steel sock interchangeable set. So you get 5 needle tips. You get US 0, 1, 1.5, 2, and 2.5. So that's 2mm, 2.25mm, 2.5mm, 2.75mm, and a 3mm needle. And the US 2 and 2.5, so the 2.75 and 3mm needles come in the 4-inch size, and the other 3 come in 5-inch sizes. And the reason for that I'll explain in a second when I show you. So they come in a set like this, and so this is the US zeros, so these are the 2mm needles, really, really thin needles. And with the set, you also get the higher grips, and you also get sock tip adapters. So the cables for the socks, I'll show you as well, for the sock needles are thinner than the regular higher cables. But because the 2.75 and the 3mm needles are in 4 inches, they come with the standard screw for the standard cables, not for the sock cables. So you get these sock tip adapters, which screw into the larger size needles. But because of that, the adapter adds about an inch to the length of the needle. So they send you the 4-inch needle length. So once you screw it into the adapters, you still have a 5-inch needle, same as you do with the smaller sizes. I hope that made sense and I didn't just confuse you guys even more. But I'm really looking forward to trying these out. And as I said, the cables for this one are different as well. The sock cables are the sort of like purpley pink colour, so you can differentiate them from your regular ones. Like I said, these are slightly thinner, so you get 100 centimeter cable, 180 centimeter cable, and 2 60 centimeter cable. So that's 2 24 inches, 2 32 inches, and 2 40 inches cables as part of the sock set. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying this set out. I know Chargu have a mini sock set, interchangeable set as well, but the sizes in that one goes down to like 00s and 000s, which I'm not interested in. I barely even knit with zeros. I think I've only knit with zeros maybe once before, so this is all the sort of sizes that I would actually use, so that's what I was trying to get at. So I really like this set, and I really like my high sharps, so that's how I feel about that. The only thing I might get in addition is if I can separately purchase an additional 2.25 and 2.5mm needle tips, so I could do concurrent socks if I wanted to. But we'll see how I like those and the joins and stuff first before I decide to do that. And that's it for works in progress. Works in progress. That's it for acquisitions. Clearly my head is not quite there. Moving on to Knit Along news and giveaways, I want to say thank you to everyone who's already gotten in touch with me, who has won prizes that I announced in the last episode. I still have a bunch of winners who still need to get in touch with me. I have one winner from the Podiversary giveaway who needs to get in touch with me. I have all 4 winners from the Knitting Expat Design Knit Along to get in touch with me as well. So please make sure you get in touch with me as soon as possible. If you haven't watched the last episode, please make sure you do that. And if I haven't heard back from any of the winners, by the next time I podcast, I will redraw the winners and announce them next time, because it will have been a month by then, so that's plenty of time, and you should have hopefully had a chance to watch the episode and get in touch. So the Sock Pattern Club, the New York Sock Collection, is ongoing. And sorry, like I mentioned, there's a Knitting Expat Designs and Knit Along. There are threads for that in the group, so you can pop along there and check out the rules and everything for entry. It's pretty simple. And there's also the Sock Pattern Club, which I am currently running, and that is the New York Sock Collection. That is running until the end of the year. All the patterns are being released monthly. The last pattern will be released in September, but the knit alongs associated with that are running to the end of the year. Again, there are threads and everything in the group for that. You can pop along there to check out the rules, and there's 2 different finished object threads, so make sure you check those out and make sure which one you want to enter into, or both. And I do pop into the chat thread regularly to answer questions and stuff like that. There haven't been too many questions lately, but I do pop in and do that. And the prizes for April, I draw monthly prizes. I will be drawing monthly prizes for this knit along. I have 3 prizes for April's month. So by the time I do the next podcast, I'll announce these winners as well. So first up is a skein of Wool Fiend. Since I'm currently knitting with her yarn, I thought I would give away the skein that she sent for the giveaway. And this is in the MS Purple colourways, also the 80/20 sock blend, and it comes with a little progress keeper on the yarn as well. And it's beautiful sort of bright, really bright tonal pink purple colourway, which is really fun. So this will be one prize. The second prize will be a sock blank from Hip Wool Yarns, and this is the Knittivist sock blank. I'm not going to take it out of the packaging because it's all neatly packaged up for you guys there. But if you check out their Etsy shop, you'll see what this looks like, all sort of spread out with the writing on it. So that's the second prize. And the third prize is this project bag from Daisy Girl and Company. And you'll have seen the project bag that she sent me, which I believe I showed it on the podcast last week, or the last time, or the time before that. And so this is another one that she sent as a prize. And I'm pairing that with this skein of Ice Yarns and this is a self-striping colourway. Again, there's no colourway number or anything. It's just their magic sock. It's 100 grams, 75% superwash wool, 25% polyamide. It's a really nice sort of sturdy sock yarn. Kind of feels a bit like a Regia or an Opal. Make quite hard wearing socks. I thought those went together quite nicely. So that's the third prize. So that's what you could win if you enter by the end of April. And I'll draw winners for that on the next episode. Or I'll announce the winners on the next episode. I will draw the prizes by then. And the other thing to mention is we have I did a Knit Crate review, which is actually the last video that's up. And there's a giveaway associated with that video as well. So if you haven't checked it out, please go ahead and do that. And then there's a giveaway thread in the Ravelry group, and that is open until the 26th of April. After that, I'll close the thread and I'll draw a winner, and I'll contact the winner directly to arrange sending them their prize. So this is just a little reminder, if you haven't already taken part in that and you'd like to, please make sure you check out that video for details and to see what the price is, and then you can head over to the Ravelry group to enter. Okay, that's pretty much it for the knitty stuff. Next up, I'm going to be answering some of the questions in the Q&A thread, and then I'll be going through a bit of a week in review, which, let's face it, is going to be a lot of talk about Layla, so if you're not interested in babies, then you don't have to stick around for that either. Okay, so let me just get the thread open. Like I said, I have a lot of questions in the thread to answer. So I'm going to try and answer a few of these, and if I don't get through all of them, I'll come back and do the rest next time. But if you do have a question for me that you'd like me to answer on the podcast, please pop along to there's a questions and suggestions thread in the Ravelry group where you can just post your questions there, and I'll try and answer them on the podcast. If it's an urgent question or a question that requires an immediate response, then I usually try and respond straight away. Or if it's something I've already answered on the podcast before, I'll just answer it in the thread for the most part. So the first question is from Alana Moya, and she says she has 2 questions, or 2 big questions with multiple mini questions. She says, you frequently mention in your podcast that high highs are your go-to needles when knitting socks. My question is about the joints. What are your favourite needles in terms of the joints? Have you ever knitted anything in size 0? And if so, what needles did you use? Do you find that joints become more annoying the more you use them? Okay, so far for all of my socks, I've used fixed circular needles. This the higher interchangeable set is the first sock set that I've used that are interchangeable. So I can't speak for the joints on these yet because I haven't tried them out. But once I do, I will definitely talk about that. But I find the high sharps have really good joints. I don't have any issues with them. Chiagus have amazing joints as well. No issues with them. I know some people have issues with their cables, but I have no issues with the cables either, or the joints. I don't find they've deteriorated at all over time. I've also used Addi Turbos in the past. I don't mind them. I don't like them as much as high highs, but again, not because of the joints. The joints have always been fine. I did use Knit Pro carbons, sorry. I didn't like those needles. They mess with my gauge way too much more than I ever expected. But it felt like the gauge I was getting, it was like I was knitting with the needle size 2 sizes bigger than what I was. It was really strange. But again, sorry about sirens. But again, I didn't have issues with the joints on that one. I did purchase those needles in person, and I physically took them out of the packaging to check the joints, because I know with the carbons, it's very hit and miss in terms of the quality of the joints. And there were definitely some that I checked that didn't have good joints and had like snagging joints. So the carbons are a bit hit and miss. If you can buy them in person, then you can check them out before you purchase to make sure you get ones that have a good joint. And the other needles I've tried for socks are Knit Pro Zings, and again I haven't had any issues with those joints either. I generally haven't had many issues with cable joins for socks. I have occasionally had issues with other cables and joints on larger size needles, but not for socks, surprisingly. And have I ever knit socks on size zeros? I have in the past I think I knit one pair of socks on size zeros, and they were a pair of Addies. I've never used them again. Again, nothing wrong with the needles, I just didn't like knitting at that gauge. I prefer 2.25mm needles. You wouldn't think 1/4 millimeter would make that much of a difference, but it really does. I felt like I was knitting with toothpicks, and it really hurt my hands. And I don't really see a reason to knit with zeros. I really like the gauge I get with 2.25mm, and I like it for my socks, so I think I'm planning on sticking with that for now. I occasionally use 2.5s or US 1.5s if it's a slightly thicker fingering weight yarn. So the second question, a sort of group of questions she posted, is: it seems from watching your podcast that you always finish your projects. Do you ever frog a project? Have you ever completed a project just to realise you didn't really like it? If so, what did you do? Frog it and reuse the yarn, or give it away? So what I've done is I do always finish my projects. I rarely frog anything. I'm just too stubborn that way, and usually the project doesn't sit on my needles long enough for me to lose interest in it to decide to frog it, because I don't want to knit that project anymore. So more often than not, I'll finish it. And then if I decide it's not something that I will particularly wear myself or want to use myself, I generally tend to gift it. But that happens very rarely. More often than not, I will know before I even start a project whether I'm going to keep it or gift it. Sometimes I change my mind halfway through, sometimes after I finished it. But there are a few occasions where I'm knitting a project that I've started, and partway through or quite close to the beginning I decide that this isn't going to work out, or this isn't the right project for the yarn, or I want to change something about the pattern that I'm working on, or whatever, because inevitably 80% of the projects on my needles are design projects for the most part. So there have been a few occasions where I've frogged the project. There is actually a shawl that I was working on, which you may or may not remember because I haven't shown it for a while, is that I'd started and I was only a couple of repeats in, and I just decided I didn't like it the way it was and I wanted to change something about it, so I frogged it, and I haven't restarted it yet, but I will be coming back to that at some point. So I do frog things on the very rare occasion. I rarely do though. I don't like frogging things. So that's that. I think that answered your question. The next question is from Leslie A. Miller on Ravelry, and she asks, I'm curious to know if your mum and other extended family members know how famous you are in the knitting world. That's very sweet. And what do they think of it, especially since she helps with the baby? This is back when my mum was here to help out. Did you have to give her instructions not to vacuum in the background while taping, or walk in the room after a shower with just the towel on? Yeah, actually when my mum was here I filmed a podcast, and in the past when she's visited wherever we were before, in Bahrain when she visited once, I basically asked her to stay in her bedroom and put her headphones on and not, so she couldn't hear me. I get really self-conscious when I know that people can hear what I'm saying, so that was quite funny. But no, she's very supportive and everyone's very supportive and stuff, and I think they kind of have a vague idea of my position, I guess, within the knitting world or whatever. I still find it very strange myself sometimes, but because none of them have ever come to any events with me, they don't see that side of things. But I think they have a vague idea. I mean, they follow me on YouTube and they follow me on Instagram as well, so they kind of see what happens for the most part. And when I talk to them, they ask about it and I tell them and stuff. So they have a vague idea, I think. My mum probably more so than anyone else because she watches the podcast, even though she's not a knitter. But no one else that I know, sort of family or friends and stuff who are non-knitters, none of them watch the podcast. I don't expect them to. So yeah, I think that sort of answers that question. And the third question I'm going to answer, third person asks, and it's from Swan Maid on Ravelry. She says, "Hi Mina, I'm a knitter from the Netherlands and I'm currently writing a thesis about the influence of social media on the popularity of needlecrafts. I was wondering if you could help me by answering a few questions." Absolutely, and I'm so sorry, I probably should have answered this within the thread so you'd have gotten your answers sooner. You did ask this, you posted this almost a month ago, so I'm really, really sorry for taking so long to get back to you about this. And she says, have you noticed a big change in your audience since the beginning of your podcasts? When did it really take off in popularity? And what is your opinion about the influence of social media on the popularity of needlecrafts? Okay. So the first question, have you noticed a big change in your audience since the beginning of your podcast? In terms of numbers, yes, definitely. In terms of who's watching, I'm not sure, to be honest. I've always known the majority of my viewership has come from the US, and then second to the US is the UK and Germany, and then the rest of Europe and Canada and Australia. That seems to be the general geographical location where the majority of people who watch the podcast come from, and there are a few from other countries as well. But in terms of, I think that question can go a couple of different ways. So if you want me to elaborate on that answer, by all means, feel free to ask a follow-up question, because I'm not sure what you mean in terms of change in audience. Do you mean in terms of numbers, in terms of location, age of the audience, stuff like that? I do have the analytics on YouTube, so I could check some of this information if you want specifics for your thesis. By all means, get in touch and I'll try and figure that out for you. But I don't really pay much attention to the analytics on YouTube, to be perfectly honest, so I'm not entirely sure. I think I could probably go back into history and check what it was at the beginning compared to what it is now, but I haven't done that so far to see how those demographics have changed. But I think it might actually be interesting to look into it. As for when did it really take off in popularity, it kind of took off quite quickly initially, but I think when it really ramped up was when I did the Sockathon last January with Marsha of the Very Little Twitch and Stitch podcast. That was just something that came out of an off the cuff comment that Marsha made on one of my photos, and we kind of ran with it and decided to do it, and it turned out to be one of the craziest things I've ever done. Don't think I'll ever do that again. I keep saying that every time it comes up, but it was insanity. And actually my husband has banned me from doing it again, which I don't mind because I don't plan on doing it anyway. I think that's really when it took off. That's when my viewership sort of jumped quite significantly over a short period of time, and I think that was kind of the turning point for the podcast in a lot of ways. And in terms of what is your opinion about the influence of social media on the popularity of needlecrafts, I think social media has had quite a big influence in the sense that it's quite a modern, social media is quite a modern sort of platform, I guess. And with needlecrafts and stuff being a very visual art form, I guess, or creative format, with things like Instagram and Facebook, where the interaction is very visual, I think it's helped bring it to the forefront and make it more popular. There's a lot of younger people are now getting interested in needlecrafts, whereas before it was seen as quite an old, I guess traditionally it was viewed as being quite an old person's craft. Like you traditionally in movies and even things now, a lot of the time people who knit or do crochet or other sort of fibre crafts are portrayed as being like the old grannies and stuff. So it's definitely becoming more popular amongst younger people, from what I've seen anyway. And I do think it's I do feel like social media has had a significant impact, but in terms of how specifically, I'm probably not the best person to ask about that. I'm not very articulate when it comes to figuring out to be able to explain the answers on that sort of thing. But there again, if you have a more specific question that you want to follow up with, by all means let me know. Okay, I think I've babbled on enough for now about questions. I have 3 more questions to answer, but I think I'll leave those for next week or next time. And yeah, so thank you so much to everyone who's asked questions so far, and like I said, if you have any to ask, by all means leave them in the thread and I will get to them next time. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break and then I'll be back with a week in review. Okay, so back now with a week in review, or a couple of weeks in review. It's been 2 weeks since I last recorded, and yeah. Okay, so last time after I recorded, later that afternoon, Perry and I headed out with Layla and we went to, we caught up with a couple of friends of his, with a friend of his and his partner, to go to Central Park. So we went to Central Park with them, and they adopted twin boys sort of late last year, and so their twin boys are now 4.5 months old. So we went to the park with them, hung out with them for a little bit, and it was just so much fun to see their babies, who are obviously quite a bit older than Layla, and see sort of where they are developmentally and sort of where we can expect Layla to be soon, which will be really fun to see. And it was really fun to see that as well. And they were talking about how, one of them, he was talking about how he was really looking forward to when they'd be able to start walking and running around so they can play. And I looked at him and I was like, no you don't. Enjoy them while they can't move. Enjoy them while they're still immobile and they're not able to run around and you're not having to chase them all the time. And actually, shortly after that, another friend of theirs, another couple, they came over with their twin boys, and their twin boys are almost 2, and they were running around everywhere, and they were constantly running circles around their parents, and the guys were constantly chasing after them. And so Perry's friend, who made the comment about not being able to wait for his babies to start walking, looked at me and he was like, I'm now starting to have second thoughts. I'm like, I told you, enjoy them while they are immobile and they are not able to run circles around you yet. Because that's when any concept of rest goes out the window. I am looking forward to that as well, but I'm also very much enjoying the fact that Layla can't run right now. I'm pretty sure she's going to be an early walker, the amount that she's got a lot of strength in her legs already. So I'm pretty sure she's not going to be a late walker. But anyway, I was talking last time about getting Layla onto a schedule, and we were doing pretty well with naps and sleeping and stuff like that. For a while we had a period of like 4 or 5 days when everything was working perfectly, and then we hit a really bad patch between week 7 and 8 where things were very hit and miss. Thankfully her night sleeping has been pretty good, pretty consistent for the last few weeks, but we had like 1 or 2 bad nights, but for the most part her night sleep has been pretty good. It's her day naps which have sometimes gone a bit skew-if, have gone a bit haywire occasionally, which isn't the best because it ends up meaning she's cranky and overtired by the time she goes down for bed. And bedtimes have consistently been the hardest time to get her to sleep. Sometimes she gets really tired and goes to sleep early, sometimes she takes forever to go down, and it's just a bit hit and miss still. Still working on that one. But during the weeks, depending on when Perry gets home, typically he gets home in time to do bedtime with Layla, and that's really the only time he gets to interact with her during the week and gets to see her, except for some of the overnights when he helps out with the feedings and stuff, which is great. But it just means that most of Perry's interaction with her during the week is in the dark, because when we put it down to go to sleep, we keep the room as dark as possible, and then obviously overnights the room is still as dark as possible so she doesn't wake up too much. So a lot of his interaction with her during the week is in darkness. There have been a few days when he's gotten home before she starts going down for bed, in which case that's been great for him because he's been able to play with her and like see her properly. But the weekends are really when he gets to interact with Layla a lot and play with her and sort of bond with her and things like that. So at the weekends he kind of takes the lead on looking after her essentially, which is nice because it gives me a bit of a break. I mean, I obviously still help out, it's not like he does everything, I still help out and do things as well, but it's just nice that the pressure's taken off me at the weekends. I don't have to worry about it too much. I know that I have another pair of hands around to help out if I need it, and it just makes the weeks easier to manage when I know he's coming home in the evening to help out. She's definitely moved along a lot with her development. Sorry, words. She's smiling a lot now. She's cooing and talking to us and to herself. And she's sort of following you with her eyes as you move around as well. And she's we're starting to, the level of interaction with her is starting to increase. And that's been a lot of fun as well. What else? I meant to talk about this last time, but completely forgot. I started the Philip Family Life sort of Instagram as a separate account from my Knitting Expat account, because I didn't really want to flood my Knitting Expat account with photos of Layla, and also I'm kind of a bit wary about how many, who sees too many pictures of her and stuff like that on the internet. So we created a separate account shortly after she was born, actually, so there's a lot of stuff on there now, and I do vet everyone who I add to the account. It's a private account, so if you request to join, I will check. And for the most part, if I can't tell from your profile that you're a knitter or a crafty person or a follower from my Knitting Expat account or something, I won't accept your request. So like if your account is also private, you don't have a profile picture and you have no description in your sort of bio section, and I have no idea who you are, then I probably won't add you, because I don't want random creepy people looking at pictures of my baby. So I'm sorry if that affects any of you, but if you are one of those people who doesn't have any photos on Instagram, is private, doesn't have a profile picture or any information about you on your Instagram page that I can see, then like I said, I probably won't add you. But if you are one of those people, then you can just send me a message and let me know that you are a knitter or a crafty person, and I'll make sure to add you. So I just thought I'd put that out there. Also, I used to, when we were living in the Middle East, I used to do a blog, and we had decided, or I had planned, once we moved to New York, to set up another blog. But so I ended that blog because it seemed like the right time to do it. It was the end of a chapter, and it seemed like that blog had sort of come to its natural conclusion. And I wanted to start a new one, sort of like a family one, just a personal, like an online diary essentially, just a personal one where I could like post, share photos with Layla and stuff like that. Because with the other blog, it was great. I mean, I had a relatively wide-ish viewership, but it was mostly friends and family who logged on to read and watch and look at the pictures and stuff, which was fine. That was the whole point of it. But since having Layla and since moving to New York, I just haven't had the time to blog. So, and the way I've realised I've started treating the Instagram account is kind of like a microblog. So when I post a picture, I sort of write a little comment about either what's going on in the picture, or a certain milestone that we've reached, or an activity that we're doing, or something like that. And it's one of those things that I can look back on later and see what we did at each stage, and with how old Layla was and stuff like that. So I'm kind of treating it as a bit of a microblog, which I'm really enjoying. And it's definitely more of a format that I can deal with at the moment. I just don't have the time for a full blog and stuff like that. Just not enough time in the day. Over Easter weekend, last weekend, Perry had a car. He's kind of got a car share thing going on with a couple of other people that he works with from his company. They have a hire car which they share amongst them to go to and from work. It's just quicker and more efficient than taking the train at the moment. And one of his co-workers, who actually lives the furthest away, she typically keeps the car because she's the furthest away, so she drops everyone off before she goes home and then picks them up in the morning on the way to work, which makes sense. But she was on holiday for a couple of weeks, so Perry had the car. So we thought we'd make the most of having the car for the weekend and decided to go head up to New Haven for the day. It was an interesting journey. The journey up was fine, no issues. Layla was fine in the car seat. She napped for about an hour, all was good. And once we got to New Haven, things were fine for the first couple of hours, all good. And then Layla refused to sleep for her lunch nap. She kind of slept for like 5-10 minutes and then woke up, and then another 5-10 minutes and then woke up. And so she became incredibly cranky, very upset and very sort of overtired, and just wasn't having any of it. She just was not happy. So the second half of our day was a little bit hit and miss. It was just trying to get her to sleep for a decent amount of time, and then she'd wake up, and then we thought we'd go for a car ride. Maybe she'd fall asleep in the car, but then she just got more irritable. So we decided to call it a day, and we started heading home around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And we ended up stopping somewhere to get some dinner on the way home. But yeah, she at one point just decided that the car was the devil's work, and she did not like the car at all. Yeah, that was interesting, to say the least. It was quite stressful at certain points. I sat in the back the whole time on the way there and back just to make sure she was okay. It's the first time she's really been in the car since we brought her home from the hospital. So I guess it was quite a lot for one day for her as well. It's a lot of stimulation and a lot of new things as well. So it might have just been a bit much for her. But she spent a lot of time screaming on the way home and just not being happy about being in the car seat. Literally every time we put her in it, she just screamed the whole time. And so yeah, I had to sit there holding the dummy, her pacifier, in her mouth the whole time so it wouldn't fall out, and that was the only way to keep her calm. But we got home in the end and it was fine. She was okay. Eventually, and that was sort of like the start of her fussy week when she wasn't sleeping very well anyway, so I'm not sure how much of that was to do with the fussiness versus the day out and stuff. So hopefully that will just settle eventually and she'll be better in the car next time. Like I said, Perry's been really good at helping out over the weekends to make sure that I can have some time to myself as well, which is great. It's good for me to have some time away from Layla and to sort of have some me time and be able to recharge my batteries, and it's also good for him to have some one-on-one time with her and to interact and bond with her in that way as well. And he absolutely loves her. He loves her so much. It's ridiculous. Sometimes if he's holding her or sort of feeding her or whatever with her and I'm trying to talk to him, he's just completely not there at all. Like, he does not hear me. He's so totally mesmerized by Layla. And I talk to him and he just looks at me, he's just like, I'm sorry, I did not hear a thing you said. Which is fine. It's a little bit annoying sometimes, but it's fine, and it's great that he loves her so much and he wants to spend time with her like that. But on that note, Perry's actually going to be away this week for 3 days. He's leaving tomorrow morning and he gets back Wednesday night, quite late actually, on Wednesday night. He has to go away for work, for a conference type thing for 3 days. So it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to be on my own for 3 days and almost 3 nights with Layla. So it's the first time that I'm going to be completely on my own with her without any help at all. I mean, I've kind of gotten used to having the days on my own with her, but at night I always had that reprieve of knowing that Perry's going to be there to help out. Either, you know, he'll help with bedtime if he's home in time, or overnight he helps as well. But now I'm going to have to do that all on my own for the next 3 days. So it's going to be interesting. I'm sure it'll be fine, and I'm sure it'll be okay in the end, and everything will work out. But I am still a little bit nervous about it. Anyway, and there was something else I was going to say. Oh, that was it. On Friday, I took Layla for her 2-month checkup. Everything went well. She's put on weight. She's grown in length. And she's doing really well. She's definitely at the bigger end in terms of babies. I went to the mums group that I go to every week now. It's only for like 6 weeks, but I've been to like 3 sessions now. But there's another baby there who is just over a month older than Layla. And Layla's way bigger than her. Layla's definitely a big baby. She was a big baby when she was born. She was very long. She wasn't like the heaviest baby, but she was quite long, and she put on a lot of weight in the first month, and now again in the second month she's put on a lot of weight as well, which is good. It's not a bad thing. But she's definitely on a bigger baby. She's definitely getting like the chubby legs and the chubby arms and the cute little squishiness, which is great, and it's really good to see. She's nice and healthy and happy. And she's almost there with holding her head up. She's doing very well at holding her head up on her own at the moment. Not quite 100% self-supporting yet, but she's getting there. She had to get her vaccinations on Friday as well, which is so sad. It made me cry a little bit on the inside. And she was so inconsolable for a while afterwards. But then she was fine for the rest of the day. But then that evening, once Perry got home, she was fine for a while, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she just started screaming, like full on I'm in pain type screaming. and it just broke our hearts. Like, it was really horrible to see, and I wasn't sure what was wrong. We changed her nappy, we tried feeding her again, we burped her, everything, we did everything, and nothing was working. So we were like, okay, none of that's the problem. She's been fed, she's not got a fever, her nappy's clean, everything's fine. And I remember she had her vaccinations, and I know vaccinations can sometimes make babies quite fussy and irritable, and yeah, that seemed to be the issue. So especially every time we touched her leg where she'd had the vaccinations, she screamed even more. So we were like, okay, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So we ended up putting her down for bed a lot earlier than usual, and she just slept. She slept, she was so tired. And again, I know vaccinations make babies tired as well, so it was just a bit of a mixed bag, really. But she was fine the next day. She was absolutely fine yesterday. It was just that evening. She kind of I think it just caught up with her. And final bit of news with Derek. Thank you to everyone who contacted me wishing Derek well and stuff like that. We got some of the results back from the tests that they did at the vets, and it turns out that he has some sort of underlying small intestine disease issue, which seems to be the root cause of his recurrent digestive issues. So they're going to do more tests today. Perry's taking Derek down to the vets again this early afternoon, and so they're going to do a few more checks, and then I think they're going to give him some meds to kind of help balance things out, and that should hopefully mean he gets back on track pretty soon. And I think that pretty much covers it. We're trying to decide, we're looking into seeing whether or not we can make it to Maryland Sheep and Wool, which is in 2 weeks. I would really like to go, and Perry's quite keen on making it work, but we're still figuring out a couple of things. We need to get someone to look after the cats, and like I said, we're just figuring it out to see how it's going to work, and yeah, if we can, then we'll go, and if not, then we won't. We'll see. I will post on Instagram if we are definitely going to be going, and if we are, I will try and make it to the podcast meetup, and all of that. Like I said, because we're not sure if we're going yet or not, I haven't figured anything out, so I will make sure to post about that on Instagram if we do decide to go, and I'll try and remember to make a note of it in the group as well on Ravelry, in case you guys want to know about that. Like I said, I will try and be at the podcasting meetup if I do go, so at least there'll be a specific time and place that I will be if you want to come and see me. I think that pretty much covers it now. I think I've done enough babbling for one day, and I will speak to you guys again in a couple of weeks. So thank you so much for joining me today. I better get going. I have a lot of stuff to do this morning. I think Layla's asleep, so I will have some time to edit and hopefully get this going, and this should be uploaded sometime later today. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me. I will talk to you guys in a couple of weeks. Take care, enjoy knitting, and enjoy whatever fibre crafts you take part in, and yeah, so till next time, bye.